Hi, everyone. Hello. I am Rachel from Sam's Bead Shop, and today I will be sharing with you how to make a statement brick stitch pendant using some beads from here at the shop. This design was originally inspired by our May 2023 Sam's Bead box, Waltz of the Flowers. It was filled with gold and purple and blues and lots of florals. And today I'm going to show you the one that I made with the box, as well as some of the other colors I've been playing with. I realized, wait, this can work with so many other colorful beads that we have, so many beautiful gemstones and check glass beads. So I'm really excited to show you how to make this. Let me turn the camera around. And for folks who are joining us live, hello. Thanks for saying hi in the comments. And if you're watching in the future, hello as well. Glad to have you here. All right, these are the pendants that we are making today. So this is the first one that I made. So all of these feature a hammer tone tiara cast ring. You can see that in that middle. This one is, I think is the white bronze one. It's a really, I love that hammer tone texture, just adds that, adds a little sparkle to it. So that's what our base is, and that's what we're building this design off of. We're then brick stitching around some rows of seed beads, as well as some larger beads. I think a lot of folks, when they think of brick stitching, especially like around a bead or around a ring like this, around a hoop, they often go for small beads. But I hope this design can inspire you to think about how you could use larger beads in your brick stitch design. And this is an earring, this is a pendant, but you could totally adapt this for an earrings design, or whatever you can think of. So that was the first one, and that's using colors from the May 2023 Sam's Bead box. And then I was playing around for class today, and the seeing was like, okay, let's try this in totally mixing up the colors here. So I went for an antique copper hoop there in the middle, and then I have the same candy jade gemstone pendant, but this one is in our dyed purple instead of blue. And in the first one, I went for 6mm check glass melons. And in this case, I just subbed that out for some fire polish. So as long as they're 6mm, you'll have, you really can go with any type of round bead that you want to fit in there. And then right in the center, I decided both times to dangle flowers. I loved kind of how the flowers are framed in this design. So first I went for a little hibiscus flower. I think it's about 9 or 10mm. And then this is one of our fairy tale flowers in the old gold color. They're about 11mm. So you can choose what size bead you want in there. And it doesn't even have to be a flower, but I do think some sort of bead that's kind of more of a flatter bead works well and sits well there right in the middle. So that's where we're heading. Let's pull out the supplies. And happy Friday, everyone. I'm so glad to have you here. So I picked out some more colors for us to play with. So I have my Candy Jade pendant focal in our dyed blue color. And these are all front drilled gemstones. In this design, I'll be showing you how to incorporate that. You could adapt this using like a side, like a top drilled one, or even one that's going all the way through. You'll have to adjust how you attach it, but there are, with seed beading, like I'm giving you kind of a base that you can play with, but you can totally take this, if you want to copy this design exactly and go for it exactly like this, you're welcome to, or to be inspired and take it using whatever beads you'd like. And then for my 6mm round, this is our purple Shira mix. For folks who don't know, Shira is part of the Sam fam, the Sam's Bead Shop fam, one of our favorite people. And we named this check glass purple mix after her because she just loves purple, and this really reminded us of her. And we love that it just has all that variety of colors in it. So I thought that would be a great dangle alongside the blue, especially because it had some of the lighter parts. And then for the flower, I went for another fairy tale flower, this time in the mint blue with an AB finish. So I thought that would add a nice little pop in the center. And then we have our seed beads. So for this design, and I'll pull up the one here, the first ring the inner ring, you could say, of seed beads are 8/0s. And then I also use the same color, but in 11/0s to go into the gemstone bead. So you can see here I have an 8/0 and 11/0. These are Toho seed beads, round seed beads in the same color. And then for our outer ring, as well as on the ends of our little dangles, I have an 11/0 in a metallic. So I kind of went for like the color on the inside of both of these, and then a more either a metallic or a neutral on the outside. You could totally play with this however you want, but that was kind of how I went with my styling. Besides this, you will need some thread. Today I will be using our wildfire thread in the 0.006 size, and I'm going for the beige because I thought that would blend in well with our gold. You'll need a needle. I used a size 11 for this project. You might be able to get, I think you could get away with a size 12. You'll just have to be careful with how many makes it a little trickier to pass through the beads as many times. So a size 11 hard beading needle was nice. And I can't remember if I shared this. This is the 19 millimeter hammer tone large ring from TierraCast that we have in the shop. And we have these in, actually, we have it in 5 different platings right now. We're going to get pewter as well. So you can really customize this to however you'd like. Awesome. And Jessie has dropped in the comments a link to the full supplies list. And if you want to shop any of the beads in this tutorial, I also have that linked in the description of this video to check out as well. All right, who's ready to get started? You guys want to do some making? Should we get seed beading? I am going to grab my thread here. So I've gone ahead and already put my thread on my needle. So when I last made this, I cut the thread to my full wingspan length. I often use that as a measurement. I found I ended up only using about half of the wingspan of the thread. So you could probably get away with something between. I feel I probably should figure out what that is in inches, but a full wingspan is too much. Half a wingspan is like a minimum. I went for a little bit on the longer end today, just to didn't want to run out on camera. But that gives you kind of a guide of what you could do. So I've just threaded my needle and folded over. The design is going to be done on just one thread, but just at the top, you'll need to fold it over. So so now I'm going to take the tail end of my thread and my ring, and we are going to tie this onto the ring, just typical, I guess, shoelace knot or overhand knot. So I'm going to do 2 knots. I want to leave about 6 to 8 inches of a tail so I can weave it in later. Just making it a little longer. We'll just make it easier to weave in later. So going to do 2 knots. Show you what that looks like. All right, I've knotted on twice so that our thread is connected. And now I need to open up these seed beads and put them in some trays. So all of these seed beads are from, actually, I'm kind of mixing bead boxes here, which is kind of fun. These are both from our Art Deco seed bead palette. So that's the seed beads that we designed to go with our October 2022 Sam's bead box. I just thought it had some really beautiful colors in there that we could use in here. And so you'll want to grab both the 8/0 palette and the 11/0 palette in order to get what you need for this. So we're going to just be using the 8/0s to start. So I'm just going to open up that, keep it simple. And this color is Silver Lined Amethyst. Here that is. Okay, so now I want to just thread on one bead. And I'm actually going to have it go through my needle. So adding that one bead to my needle, I'm going to bring that down. But before I bring it down all the way, I also want to bring my tail thread through there as well. So bring that through. So now both what we call our working thread, that's our long one that has the needle on it, as well as our tail thread, our little stub of thread here at the end, are going through this. And now I'm just going to pull tight, and that will help hide the knot that we made in the bead. So I'm just going to pull on that. So it honestly doesn't even look like I had a knot there. All right, so that was the first bead we add. Now let's add the second one. And now we don't need to worry about that tail thread. That's just going to hang out there. We're not going to be adding any beads to that for a long time. So adding one more. So now I have 2 beads on my thread. And now we're going to do our first brick stitch. So my thread is right now on the back side of this component. I need to go through the hoop. In this case, I'm choosing to come up through the hoop. And then once I do that, without trying to get my thread not tangled up in the cords over here, I have a little more in my way. All right, so I've gone through the hoop. Now I need to go back up through that second bead, and I'm going through it the way that the thread is coming out. So we're coming out of the bead on the right-hand side there, so I'm going to go back through it that same direction. And that is what we call a brick stitch, what we did exactly there. And I'm just going to pull tight again. So it's sitting there snugly. All right, so this first part is probably the most repetitive part, is that we need to have this ring go all the way around. So this is kind of the simplest part of the design, is we want that first ring of 8 O's going all the way around. And it's not until the second row that we're starting to really like add our character, add our design. So this is a good chance to just practice kind of the basics of brick stitch. And brick stitching on a ring like this is kind of like, you know, if you're a beginner to seed beading, a beginner to brick stitch, like this is a great place to start, is just doing a simple row of 8 O seed beads around a hoop. So I think anyone can definitely give this a try. So I've added on my next bead, and I kind of am just like holding the bead in place there. And try to bring it up a little closer. My thread is on the back side. I'm going to bring my needle through. So making sure my bead stays there, my thread comes all the way through, and now go back up this bead. So now I'm going to continue this all the way around. So this is the first step. While I'm doing this, I'll take a look in the comments. Do folks have any questions or tips they want to add on with this? Becky Foster says can be really meditative. I definitely agree with that. Especially when you're using just one color, you're not having to worry about like switching colors. Like you can kind of stop paying attention so much. You know, you can get distracted by some music or a podcast while you're doing it, and you don't have to worry about picking up the wrong bead. Last week in our class with Danielle, we also did brick stitching, and we did it around a donut, which is quite similar. That's still a ring that you're going around. In that case, it wasn't a metal ring. It was actually a gemstone donut. We were doing it, I think, around a red jasper one. So if you were able to catch class last week, this is that same technique. And if you haven't seen that one yet, definitely recommend checking it out. And I'm really liking how the beige wildfire is blending in on the gold. You kind of like almost don't even notice that there's thread going over it, which is great. I know sometimes it can be really nice to have that contrast. But I don't know, for this design, there's already going to be so much going on. I don't mind the thread just kind of blending in. So I was able to, on both of the 2 that I have made, it fit well to do 22 of these 8 O seed beads. That seemed to work out quite well. So that's what I'm going to aim for today. depending on the size of your ring, you might have to do a different number, or you might be using a different brand of seed beads. Like, if you're using Miyuki seed beads or Czech glass seed beads, even ones that are like they're both 8-ohs. Often those can be different sizes from different seed bead companies. So you'll just have to go around and fit as many as works for you. For my design, I did like the way I did the design. It worked nice having an even number of seed beads all the way around. But you could make it work with an odd number as well. And I think someone mentioned this a little earlier in the comments, but we have restocked all of our hammer tone rings in actually 3 sizes. So this is kind of it is called the large ring, but it's actually kind of the middle size. We have a smaller size, little itty bitty ones we do as a 4-piece set. These ones we sell as a 2-piece set. They're the 19 millimeter size. And then we have some large pendant ones that we sell by the piece. All right, I can go a little slower on the next couple stitches just to make sure folks see what's going on here. So I've just added 1 bead onto my needle. I'm going to pull that to the end. Get those out of the way. So I've added on 1 bead. My thread is on the back side and I'm coming up through the hoop. And I want to make sure my bead stays where it was and doesn't come through the hoop as well. So that needs to stay there. So that way, when I go back up through this bead, going back through the way that the thread was coming out, because I've gone around the hoop, it'll lock right into place. But I have gone right around my phone cord, so try that again. I don't think Sam quite has this issue when he's doing wire work of going around these cords. I'll have to figure out how to get those more out of the way. All right, let's see what other questions have come in while I just continue. We don't have too much left to do. Someone asked, have I done 11-ohs to do this? I mean, you definitely could. I chose to do 8-ohs on this first ring, and then we'll use 11-ohs on the second. But you could totally adjust it and use 11-ohs. Yeah, you'll just have to the next step when we're adding on the other beads, you'll kind of have to come up with some of your own spacing, because I'll kind of show you how I chose to space out the beads on the second row in relation to the 8-ohs in the first row. And you'll just have to play around with the spacing if you adjust these beads. Let's see, another question we have, could this be done on a drop shaped tiara cast piece? Yeah, actually, that is a great idea. Especially because the bottom of their like teardrop shape ones still have that rounded bottom. I think that'd be really cool to do. I'd love to see that. Ooh, someone's even thinking about using 15-ohs. Yeah, for that, you'll definitely just have to think about, like, you might want to use a thinner thread, a thinner needle, because you are having, you're going through these seed beads more than once. Like, just with this brick stitch right now, I'm going through the beads twice. Thank you all for those questions. I'm glad everyone can relate to getting their thread stuck on stuff. It's kind of the what we deal with, right? Unless we really clear things out, clear things away. All right, I want to count how many beads I have here, because I do want to stick to the 22 I did last time. 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, I think 18. I'm just going to count one more time. Yeah, I've got 18, so I want to add 4 more. You can see I was kind of like, I used the needle to help me count. There's a little bonus tip. All right, that was now 3 more beads. Threading it on up through the hoop and up through the bead. And then I'll just need 2 more beads. So yeah, I definitely want to, when I add the last one, I kind of want to show you something I often have to do right at the end. All right, this should be 23. I'll just double check. 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. Wait, I already lost count. All right. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 21. Oh, wait. Was I way off? Oh, no, I wanted 22. Started thinking I wanted 24. Yeah, so I just want 1 more bead. But you can see that this spacing is actually kind of looks like it's like a little bit more for 1 bead. I think there's a tip that I've definitely seen from some other YouTubers is like with brick stitching, you'd want to go for like a little less beads than a little more. Because if you try to put too many in there and squish them together, it kind of makes the beads kind of jut out, makes them look a bit funky. So instead, I'm just going to add 1, and then I'll show you what I do. My tail's just getting in the way, so I'm just going to get that out of the way. So I'm adding that 22nd bead. All right. I might even exaggerate this, but you can see there's like a little bit of a gap between those last 2 beads. It's not enough to add another bead. Like maybe you could try to squeeze it in, but rather than squeeze it in, we're going to do a little shimmy of the beads because these still have some flexibility. So all I'm going to do is just literally just pull and push on the beads to make those beads be closer together. And that way I'm kind of just, that extra little space is getting spread out between the rest of it. And you don't even notice. So that's one tip, is just don't try to add too many beads. Don't like when you have a little extra space, that doesn't mean, oh, don't just go for it and add another bead. Rather, you can kind of move things around to make it fill out. So we have made it around our first ring. And now I'm going to pull this up for our next step. Okay, so now before we start the second row, I do kind of like want to connect these so they aren't just so open. So what I'm going to do to kind of close this loop is I'm going to go down this next bead. And now there is that bridge on the top, just like for all the other ones. And then I'm just going to go up the next bead because I want to be heading out of an 8-0. All right. And now we have our complete ring. So ready to start our second row. And this is where all the magic happens in this design. So one thing is, one question to think about is, okay, where am I going to start on this second row? Obviously we have different types of beads going around. We have this dangle on the inside. What are we going to do first? What I found to be the most useful is to actually make our centerpiece first and then just fit the other seed beads around it. That way I can kind of make my centerpiece look exactly how I want it, because that's kind of the core piece. I don't want to be like having to like fudge that in and fit it in. I want to give that the space that it wants to take up. And then these little 11 seed beads can just fill in. So we're actually going to make this bottom part first, starting with one of our 6mm beads. So going back to the design using the May box, we're going to be like starting here, adding as if you were adding a melon on to kick things off. All right, so I am coming out of one of the 8-0 seed beads, keep my tail thread out of the way, and now I'm going to add on one 6mm round. Then I need to open up my 11 seed beads now. These are the ones that are in my contrasting color. I went for a metallic. This is the Permafinish Galvanized Golden Fleece that is part of the Art Deco Toho palette. So I've got one 6mm, then just one of these 11s. Just like that. And then I need to go back through, but I don't want to go back through the 11 because then the bead will just fall off. So I'm going to skip that, but I'm going to go back through the 6mm bead, and I'm going to go back through that same 8 seed bead that I'm coming out of. We will pull that tight, and just like that, we have our first little dangle. And sometimes this one, yeah, just by pulling tight, I was able to get there. Sometimes you kind of have to hold the end and pull to help it get there. But that's the first one. Now for the second one is where you have to start thinking about placement. So like I could just go up through the next 8 and add a bead, but then they'd be kind of squished. So I'll show you what I did to kind of give these 6mm beads a little bit of spacing. So I am going to now, I'm coming out of this, there you go, I'm coming out of the 8 that's under my 6mm round, and I'm going to go up the 8 next to it. And I am going to add on just the same. Here's my round, and then my seed bead. Pull that all the way down. And then what's different about this row, about this dangle, I am going to go back through the 6mm, but I'm not going to go through the same 8 that I came out of. I'm actually going to go down through the one next to it, and that way these two rounds have a little more space between them. So I will skip the 11 seed bead and go through my 6mm round. And then instead of going down the 8 that I did before, I'm going to go down the one next to it and pull on that. And look at that. You can always kind of play with the bead at the end if you don't quite like how it's sitting. Now we have our first 2 dangles, and this way they're just not so squished together. And this way this round kind of sits between the two 8 there, and I like how that fit. But that's where you kind of get to play around in your design and on how you want these things sitting next to each other. All right, so we've added our first 2 rounds, and now it's time to start thinking about our big gemstone. So now I'm going to go up through this center one. Let's see. There's so many ways you can flip this over. All right, so now I'm coming out of the next 8 and we're going to make kind of our true centerpiece to this design. So for this, I will need my last seed bead color. So yeah, I'm actually not going through any thread bridges during this section. While I'm adding all these dangles, I'm choosing to just go through kind of weaving through the 8 that we already have. But I'm not actually really, I guess at this point, I'm not really doing a brick stitch in that traditional sense. I'm not using the thread bridges. And that's just, this is how I wanted these pieces to lay. If you were to truly brick stitch on these dangles, it would have a different look. So now I am doing, so this is my second 11 color, and I went for the same one that my 8 is. I just kind of liked that continuation of those colors matching. If you wanted, you could totally have, it's kind of like your bail. You could make your bail be you could have it match the other ones. But I kind of liked the look of it blending in. So I chose to do 3 of these. I'm going to add 3 of my 11 seed beads. And then I need my beautiful candy jade pendant. This was such a cool thing that we were able to include in the box. We got to choose the exact colors that we wanted them dyed to match the theme. So everyone got both a purple one and a blue one in their box. And I just love how the colors came out. So that is going to sit right there. And I want another 3 of them to make up the bail on the back side. And then I am going to go back up that same 8-0 bead that I came out of. And this way I like how it just sits. And I'll make this focal sit just right underneath. And I do want to reinforce this. This will help just, this is a heavier bead, a larger bead. So I kind of like the idea of reinforcing it a little bit. So in this one, I know I found I was kind of trying to minimize the times I went around the hoop. I kind of liked not having too much thread around it. But this is a case where I felt like it was worth it. So in this case, I am going to go through the hoop. Just getting my tail thread out of the way, going through the hoop, and now I'm going to reinforce. So I'm basically just going to go back through everything. So I'm going to go back through the 8-0, back, and then back through the bail, through that pendant. And that way it's just a little bit stronger. And I kind of find it sits better as well. Back up the 8-0. So now we have our large gemstone teardrop showcased right there. So now we want to add our rounds on the other side to make it symmetrical. So we're going to do the same thing again and kind of mirror it on the other side. So let's see how I want to hold this. All right, so now I'm just going to go up the next 8-0. Let's grab a round. An 11-0 seed bead in my metallic. And then back through the 6mm. And we're doing a mirror of the other side. So the one that's to the left of our big focal, we didn't go back up the same 8-0. We went back up the one next to it. So I'm going to do that same thing on the other side. So that way I have the exact same spacing on both sides. So I've got that one. And then up the next 8-0. And let's grab one more 6. Another seed bead. Back up the round. And this time I am going to go back through the exact same 8-0 seed bead I came out of. Now we'll have a really nice symmetrical centerpiece. And I'm just, throughout this whole process, I really tried to make sure I'm pulling tight as I do each part. Because if any of them are kind of loose, it'd be pretty tricky to try to like get back there and tighten it up. So it's best to just continue to pull as you go. So here is where we're at. I really love using a front drilled pendant for this because I love how you get to kind of see the seed bead in the front. I haven't done this with like more of like the brio drill. In that case, your beads would kind of be going, your seed beads would be making that bail out of the sides of it, which would totally still work. You may end up needing a little bit more space between between this focal and the rounds next to it. So you can definitely play with that. All right, so we've got our centerpiece. Now, wow, we're all right. I think we're at a good spot in time, because now it almost feels like we're at our finishing touches, but we still have actually a couple techniques to do. So we now are going to add our outer ring of 11 seed beads, and then we're going to add our loop at the top as well as our dangle in the center. I see some folks are chatting about picking out what colors they're going to use. With this design, you have a lot of options. You could go like super monochromatic, and I mean, you can make everything match. Like you would have to choose your metal, but then you might make everything else green or whatever color you want, or you can try to go for something that's like more high contrast. So I think you can really play with that, with those options. All right, so let me show you how to transition into the next section of our piece. So and now we're going to go back to more traditional brick stitch techniques. So I am coming out of the 8-0 right here. Let's go up the next one. And now because this is kind of like the start of a new row, usually when you start a row, just like when we started that first row, we're going to start with 2 beads. So I'm going to grab 2 of my, and I just dropped them everywhere. Wonderful. Little sparkle. Why not? Now you know this is really live, right? I didn't cut anything out. All right. Well, now I can just grab them from the table. So I'm trying to get 2 of these on my needle. Can anyone relate to this today? Beads flying everywhere. All right. So here I've added 2 beads, and now we are doing brick stitching. So that means we are going to be using what's called a thread bridge. So a thread bridge is all the thread that is on top of these seed beads. Each of these, there's like a little bridge connecting them at the top, made out of thread. So there you go. So what I want to do is so the question is like, which thread bridge do I go through? So I'm coming out of this 8-0 right here, and I want to go under the thread bridge between these 2 as well. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to go back up through the second 11 seed bead. I'm going through it. I'm entering the way that the thread came out of it. And this actually is the same technique as the first row. In the first row, though, our like thread bridge was the hoop. That was the thing that we were, bringing our needle through. In this case, we don't have a hoop to go through, but these thread bridges are kind of our new ring. So in this case, you kind of have a choice. You could go back through, and that can help these beads kind of sit in place. So I think I'll do that. I'm going to go, that is what I did in my other one. So, and just so folks know, you could just keep going with brick stitching, but to help kind of that first bead sit nicely, you can go down it and then back up the second bead, and that'll just help them both sit really nicely. So yeah, before that first bead was kind of sitting at an angle, but now it's sitting, I don't know, a little neater. So it can be nice to take that extra little step. All right, so now we're just gonna brick stitch for a little bit. And as you're going around, when you're doing a second row, I think the hardest part can be figuring out, okay, which thread bridge do I go under? Like, which do I want to reuse the same thread bridge I've already, the same one that's between 2 beads, or do I start heading to the next one? And I found it just kind of varies, and you just have to play with it. I'd say most of the time I had 2 beads, 2 beads on each of the thread bridges. But sometimes it got kind of tight and I only used one. And then one time I kind of skipped ahead too much and there was too much space and I just undid it. So it's not a permanent decision. So in this case, we already have these 2 beads are kind of sharing that first thread bridge. So now I'm going to go through the next thread bridge. So at this point, I'm just adding 1 bead, going under the bridge, and then going back up that same bead to lock it in place. Add on another 11-0. Oh, thanks, Melody. Yeah, if folks are able to give a like on the video, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, that would be super helpful. Just lets the algorithm know that you guys like the video, and will help it get shown to other beaders. So that would be wonderful. And if you're on our YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube and you are not subscribed yet to the Sam's Beadbox YouTube channel or Sam's Bead Shop YouTube channel, I hope you will subscribe, because we have a new class almost every Friday. That's free beading classes almost every week. So I'll show you on this next one. So I did 2 beads, and that second one I went under the exact same thread bridge. But now I'm going to move on to the next thread bridge. So added 1. And I still think I am going to add a second one to that same thread bridge. This is where it gets, I feel like you have kind of some choice. Is like, should I only put 1 bead with that thread bridge? Should I go for 2? Right, adding on a bead. Heading it through the thread bridge and back through the bead. Oh, and okay. So I didn't quite know how all these colors would turn out, but I am the gold and the purple is making me happy there. I love how those are laying. All right, let's see. I kind of want to, I only put 1 bead on that thread bridge, and like there isn't really much room to fit another bead with that same one. So I'm actually going to, at this point, I think just move on to the next thread bridge. I think that worked well. But now you can see, like, I've used this thread bridge once, but there's still quite a lot of space between these 2 beads that I can fit another 11-0. All right, we are getting close to being able to show you the top and the dangle. That's kind of the last bit of new technique in here. So I had that. So because this is 22 beads, I have this bead here. I want the one directly across, which looks like it'll be this one. It means it'll be kind of like 10 on either side, and then these 2 kind of focal ones at the top and the bottom. So I'm just going to count if I have 10 here. So 3, 6, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So yeah, this should be that top center bead. So I'm going to keep going until I've added 1 bead on the thread bridge next to that center one. Okay, let me see here. Four, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, this is actually 10. It was a little off. Let me check on this side. 3, 6, 9, 10. Oh, I wonder if I put 23 beads on. What did I do here? Well, either way, you just want it centered at the top. I think this next one will make it centered. All right. So I'm considering this one my top. I can hold that a little higher. This one my top center bead. So I've added one bead using that thread bridge. And now we're going to make our little loop at the top. You could also use a wire guardian for this, but I liked the look of a little beaded loop. I would just then add a jump ring through there and some chain to wear this pendant. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add 5 of these 11-0 seed beads. All right, I have 5 of them on there. And then I am going to go down the thread bridge on the other side of my top center bead. Get my tail out of the way. And then I'm going to go back up. To start, I'm just going to go back up the last one. It's like I'm brick stitching just that last bead. And that creates our little loop here. And I do want to reinforce this because, you know, we're going to be having like a jump ring and chain kind of pulling on it. So I think it's just to make sure, you know, things don't break. I think it's nice to have at least 2 layers of thread. So so far I've only gone back up that last 11-0, but I'm going to go through them all. So that way we have 2 pieces of thread here and not just one. Going all the way down, going through the 5 as well as sort of like the 6th one there as well. Just be gentle. I don't want to break any beads. Let's see, maybe I'll do this. Maybe not quite so many at one time, just to be safe. All right. Cool. So now we have reinforced that loop, made it a little bit stronger. And now we're going to add our centerpiece dangle. So to do that, let me see here. All right. So we need to be heading towards the center. We need to be going through the right bead. So I actually want to go, I'm coming out of my 11-0 on that one that's on the left side of my little loop. And now I'm going to go down through my center, that 8-0, that's my like top center one. That way when I hang this dangle, it'll be centered coming right out of that. All right, so now we can add our dangle. So I'm coming out from there, and here's where I'm going to use one of our fairy tale flowers. I think these fill the space really nicely inside these 19 millimeter hammered rings. Here these are with that really nice AB flash. So let me just, you know, I get to choose which one for my pack I like the best. Let's string that on. Got our flower. Sounds like some people will be gardening this weekend, hanging out with their flowers. So we're starting that off right now. And oh my God, I feel like this piece, it like just took on a different life, adding that pop of blue there in the center. Like I love I feel like it just took it to the next level. You could totally skip the dangle, but I'm definitely feeling it. And then I need to add my 11-0 at the bottom. Kind of like a little stopper bead at the end of the dangle. And then I'm going to go back. I'm going to skip that 11-0, but go back through my fairy tale flower. And right now, when I first did that, I kind of have a lot of extra thread there. So I think if I just kind of like hold on to the fairy tale flower, yeah, if I like kind of hold on to that while I pull, it gets rid of some of that extra thread. But now my thread that's heading into the fairy tale flowers on the front, I'm going to actually send my needle through the loop to the back. getting tail out of the way again. All right, so I'm pulling give you a close up here. So my thread heading into the dangle is on the front side. So now that I've come back up through the dangle, I brought my thread through the back. So that way I just flipped over my piece and I'm going to go back up that center 8/0 bead. And this way the dangle's really hugging on to the ring by having the thread be on both sides. I would definitely, this will help it really sit well in there. If you go back up the 8/0 but have the thread like on the front side, you know, both it going down and up the dangle on the front side, it'll end up kind of like flapping up. It just won't sit that well. So that's something you'll want to make sure to do. All right. And then you'll want to make sure to pull that tight. I mean, if you want it looser, it'll, you know, it'll swing a little bit more. But I like kind of holding that and pulling it tight. All right, well, we've done all the hard part, so now we just got to finish this off. I just want to make the rest of my ring here. So let's see. So right now I'm going up this 8/0. I'm going to go back up my last 11/0, the kind of the last one that's been added. So that way I can continue brick stitching. And you can always kind of move this around, make sure you like the look of your loop. And if you want, you could totally make your loop bigger by adding more beads, whatever you like. And kind of how far apart the beads are at the bottom will kind of affect the look as well. All right, so now I'm coming out of the last 11/0 and I want to continue brick stitching. So I'm just going to add one bead, bring that down. Going to go through the next thread bridge and back up the bead. And we're just going to repeat that some more times. All right, we are in the home stretch, everyone. Thank you all for hanging out with me this afternoon. And if you're watching later on, thanks for checking out this video. It was really exciting to be able to share with you all how to make this piece. And it's really cool to see a whole different colorway coming together. I guess I was really feeling the blues and the purples because I basically did another variation of blues and purples. But I promise you can do this design in any color palette you would like. I think we have some front drilled pendants. I think we have some like emerald ones in the shop right now. What else? I think we have maybe some different jasper, like maybe, I don't know if it was impression jasper or something like that. So you could get some totally different looks by having a different feel to this main focal piece. It'd be cool to do this in more of like an earthy color palette. Or maybe I want to go for more of like a sunrise or sunset color palette, bring in some more of those oranges and reds. But I'm really liking the feel of these as we're kind of in late spring, heading into summer. I don't know how I'm going to choose which of these three to wear. All right, we are so close. Once I finish adding the beads, my last part will I'll show you how I kind of end off the thread because that's important. You want to end things off cleanly and securely. And you'll see why I've been kind of letting the tail thread hang out. As I'm kind of wrapping this up, doing my last few stitches, does anyone have any other questions? Please let me know. I saw a few folks mentioning they're gonna make this after the video. They were kind of watching today, focusing on learning the technique. But now once they have some time, they're gonna think about what colors they're gonna do. So yeah, because I think you got to spend a little time just kind of putting beads next to each other, seeing what fits well. And you can also check out what we have in the shop. If you want to grab some other flowers or other 6mm rounds, we have some options. Shira gave me a suggestion. She says, because I have 3, I might as well have I could just make them earrings and a pendant. Those would be some heavy earrings. I don't know if I would wear that, but totally could. Why not the mismatched look? Love the idea. I think if you went for, I think the main thing preventing me from having this be an earring is just the size of this center focal. If I just made if I made this smaller, then I could definitely see these as earrings. Cause you could just do 5 6mm rounds. Like these could just be the exact same beads at the bottom. And I think that would kind of tame it a little bit for earrings. These still aren't that tame. All right, so let's see how we wrap this up. All right, I think I can fit in one more bead. All right, so I've added on my last bead here. I'm going through these 2 8/0s. I'm not using the thread bridge that's right next to my 6mm round. Hold it up. So yeah, I'm not going to use this one for these seed beads because I didn't use that on the other side. I'm using my thread. The last thread bridge I want to use is the one between these 2 8/0s. And while this is here, before I go back up and make this really tight, I am going to actually bring my tail thread through this last bead. And now I can bring my needle to finish brick stitching this one. All right, and now we have added all of our beads. So let's just wrap this up. So we've got our 2 threads coming out of that last 11/0. I'm just going to knot these twice together and then weave them in, and we will be finished. So I just did 2 overhand knots, and I don't want to cut it right next to the knot because then if it opened, the beads might start flying. So I just need to weave in the thread just a little bit. So I need to, looks like I took the needle off my thread, but I just need to add that back on. Let's see, I'm just gonna take my chain nose pliers and flatten that a little bit to help get it on. So I hope you've been inspired by today's class. I'm really excited to see what folks make based on this. I love seeing the totally different directions that people take these designs. So if you are not yet, make sure you join our community on Facebook. That's the Gem Chat Facebook group. You can search for that. We also have we have a link for that in the description of this video if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're on Facebook as well. And then you can, join our Facebook group. And if you make something, whether it's this or something totally different, you can post what you make there for everyone to see. I'd love to see it. All right, now I'm just going to weave in these 2, this thread. So just going to go through, whether it's the 8/0s, the 11/0s, doesn't really matter too much. Just going to weave back and forth a little bit before I cut off the thread. So yeah, I think I will just end things here. But yeah, I would just, to wrap it up, weave in a couple times, take either a thread burner or some scissors, some cutters, and cut off the threads. And that is our design for today. And just as a reminder, here are some of the other color combos that I came up with, all in this kind of these blue and purple palette, but using different metals. I've got the silver, the copper, the gold. So you can grab whichever type of ring that you would like. We have all 5 of these options in the shop. If you check out the link, we kind of made like one big main link for everything you need to know about for this class. If you see that it says like view supplies and something like that, click on that link and it'll get you you can take a look at these rings. You can see the supply list, as well as the flowers, the teardrops, all that stuff. But I also wanted to quickly show off that we have the rings in a larger size. These are the 1.25 inch size. Like, imagine doing this design on that. That would be a really fun statement. And then we also have little baby rings in all of these fabulous platings. And I think this is our first time having these ones in pewter. So we've expanded the line. All right, let me just make myself, let's just adjust the, there we go. Can even make myself the solo view. All right, I should hold one of these up so you can kind of see if I was wearing this as a pendant, how it might. It's always hard, the camera's like the opposite, but that's how it might look. Well, thank you all so much for hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed. I really love getting to spend time with you all and show you all how to do this. So have a lovely weekend, and I'll see you all later. Bye.